I suppose we're okay to start.
I'd say we are.
Okay. Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to the first ever AndroidChat Chat. This is a new event that we're trying to run in this community. It's open for everyone, run over Hangouts and just broadcast on YouTube. And the idea is to have a bunch of devs together for an hour and talk about something they hold dear. So, because we're kind of organized by Android Chat, we're going to be talking about Android mostly and related topics. So, the first one, today's topic is general state of Android. So, we have three things in the agenda. First one is ecosystem, and then some architectural stuff, and then some couple of minutes more to talk about the CIs, and then we'll be taking also a couple of questions. Okay, so shall we start by introducing ourselves? If I start, I'm Zan. I work at Marks & Spencer in London as lead on the shopping apps, and that's pretty much what I do. And Max, you want to go next?
Yeah, I'm Max. I'm from Germany, Android developer at Deutsche Bahn, the German railway. I'm working there on their travel companion app and several other in-house apps.
And Ian?
Hi, I'm Ian. I'm a developer at what was previously known as Super Popcorn and Synexio, and currently can't say what's known as.
All right, Paco?
So I'm Paco. I work for Haro.com, which is a video services company for sports team in mostly the States, but we're trying to expand to Europe. So I'm part of the Android development team.
And Abhinandan, I hope I pronounced
it. Yes, you pronounced it correctly. Hi, I'm Abhinandan. I'm Android developer at Gojek Indonesia. It's an Indonesian transportation company. If you have visited Jakarta or anywhere in Indonesia, then you must have definitely used Gojek.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I suppose we can start talking Android, I guess. So our first topic is Android ecosystem. What's the current state of Android? And we all know that Android 7 or Nutella is coming out soon. I'm being told that it's not actually Nutella, but I refuse to call it something else. And how do we feel about Google for the event?
I think it's getting better every year because, like, they said they're working with Sony. Actually, they have and developer previews, and HTC has it in the works already, and Samsung actually is going to probably update S7 as soon as the N is out officially. So it's getting better.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll have like 20% people in the first 6 months at N, and that's like, wow.
That's like almost iOS numbers, isn't it?
Yeah, almost.
Yeah. So what's like your favorite features in 7 that you're mostly looking forward to? Is there any, or is it just nothing particular?
Probably split screen. Yeah.
Definitely a split screen.
Have you guys used it? Like I've started using it in the first preview, but then kind of stopped.
Why? Because of Pokemon?
Yeah, Pokemon does not support it. Yeah. I suppose that's a big no. But no, it's like I haven't actually found the use case. Like, how do you intend of using split screen?
I guess the same way you use it in the computer. Like you are doing media consumption on one side and then your regular browsing on the other. So maybe on like landscape on phones or even on tablets. I think that's where it would be the most useful.
Tablets would be cool.
Now I actually wonder how they'll support like using two camera apps at the same time. Like if one doesn't release the OnePlus.
That's quite interesting. Yeah, and obviously I can't wait to for Jack and Jill to come into effect, but that I don't think that's coming in 7. It's just like tooling updates, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
I wish we had like more Java 8 backwards, but we'll have to wait for N to be like really popular.
Maybe when this event is big, we can get the same people that they got on Reddit the other day. Get them here.
The engineering team.
Yeah, and then pretty much just ask them in real life and stare at them until they answer something that they like.
I mean, they denied any chance of changing into a new language, but they were developing something behind the scenes. Of course, there's always the yet part at the end of every sentence, but they seem to be trying to go forward with Java 9 and Java 10 with the new features, like the REPL and value types and all those things.
Yeah, it's happening. I mean, for some reason, Kotlin already has all those features. It just doesn't have the speed of compilation.
Well, I don't see why they would like need to move to another language. Java is like fine, you can use Kotlin. Not everything, support libraries and everything can stay written in Java.
Mm-hmm.
Like the official support is there by JetBrains, so no need for them to move to it.
And like with Kotlin, I know that you use it, Ian. I don't use it in production. Anyone else? What's your Paco?
So we started using it on production maybe a month and a half ago, and basically I started moving some of the classes that we had, especially with reactive extensions, to Kotlin, and the use of lambdas and everything make it really simple. So you get a lot less code. Generally, we saw a reduction of maybe 20% on the amount of lines that you have, and it's better laid out on the screen because you don't have those inner classes or you have those extra method calls that you have to do. The type checker is also better. Like you don't have to go through so many problems to try to sort out when you're using generic types. So both those things, I think they have reduced the amount of overhead that we get. Compilation time, on the latest version, I think we're in 1 minute for most starts. So we used to be 1 minute 40, even 2 minutes a while ago. When you remember, there was a couple of builds where the build system was broken, and I think we're back to 1 minute. So it's mostly okay. It's acceptable. And bug-wise, we haven't found anything that is related directly to Kotlin in that sense. So, I mean, it gets a thumbs up from me at least.
Step in the right direction, I suppose. Anyone else? No?
No, not yet.
We already use it in production, but like the only beef I have with it is the autocomplete is really slow, like terribly slow. I have to wait a second for anything to pop up, and that just kills the mood.
Could be worse, I guess. You could be writing Groovy. Yeah, interesting. What else is there? Yeah, there was another suggestion of talking about how do we feel about Google being at the helm? Like, yeah, Google picking the right languages, Google building the tools, Google being sued for Android not being competitive or being monopolistic. What's your, are we being impacted as developers, or are we, what's going on?
That lawsuit is like so shitty. It's terrible. Like I don't know if you guys have been following what's happened with Pokemon when they released it, and APK was up at the APK mirror like 15 minutes later, and then a day later, like thousands of sites had the APK and some were infected. And imagine that being the case, like every user with, I don't know, a phone made by, I don't know, a random company, let's call it Random Inc., that doesn't have Play Store and downloads an app that's infected, because like if someone uploads some Play Store Pokemon Go, you see, oh, it's Niantic, okay, it's certified. But then like someone comes over, downloads it from a random app store, from a random manufacturer, and they can't confirm it's Niantic, and you get thousands of people with infected phones, probably without security updates. Just like terrible.
Yeah, I agree. So for the viewers that don't know what lawsuit is talking about, there is European Commission, Commissioner for Competitiveness or Competition. She's kind of started this case against Google that's claiming Google is uncompetitive, is acting uncompetitively towards other players in the Android ecosystem. So they could be telecoms, or they could be device manufacturers or service manufacturers. And I think that the main issue with them is bundling everything with Play services. And if you don't have the Play services, you don't have the right chance to be part of the ecosystem, and you have to play by Google's rules.
Actually, the lawsuit, the case was brought to European investigator by a Fair Search, which is Microsoft started an alliance and sponsored it. Like 20 companies that are all in the ad business, and they all just are interested in getting more money from Android users instead of Google taking the money, and they don't even care about it being fair market, competitive, good for people. They just care about earning money. It's kind of based.
I think at the same time, some of the discussion shifted, because initially Android is supposed to be open source, and you were able to do your own implementation. And we know Microsoft did their own version with Android X. We know Amazon did their own version. Yeah, I know, it was a thing. It was a thing. Amazon did their own version also with Fire. And the problem is today, if you wanna branch from Android, basically you're losing a lot of functionality because you're not getting the Play services. And one of the changes in Android N is that the dose mode requires Play services if you want to have any kind of ongoing background service, which is a little bit like throwing the baby out with the water. We don't know if it's a business decision or it's a technical decision, but just telling everybody, like, you're not going to be able to update, or maybe once an hour, maybe once every 24 hours, unless you go through our stack. Then what is on the open source project for you as an alternative to that system? And I think Xiaomi with the MIUI are the only ones that probably will think about an alternate solution, but we don't know how that's going to pan out.
Yeah, cool. I see someone else has joined us. Hi, Jason. He's muted.
Hey, guys.
Hello. Thanks for joining us. We just gone through State of Android. Before that, we introduce ourselves. If you want to say a word or two about yourself, or not.
Like, Paco, what are we talking about now? Wait. Jason? Anyway, Paco, what are we talking about now with...
it's really loud in here, where I was going to try to stay.
Right.
With it, like, not being open source, like, even Cyanogen, like, tried to build a Android ecosystem around their fork, with Microsoft helping them with services and everything, with maps, with location, and it turns out they're gonna stop doing that because there's just not enough money in it. Like, not even with their own place or their own location, their own services. It's just not profitable because you just don't want it.
Yeah, that's. It seems like the pie is either not big enough or people don't really. They haven't found a way to make money from it from third-party stores or ecosystems, however you want to call it. We can't hear you, Max.
I can hear you, Max.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, so did you see the MicroG project, which tries to re-implement all the proprietary APIs and user space apps?
Yeah. Haven't tried using it though. Have you tried using it?
But it's going to be interesting to see if they can keep up even remotely.
Yeah.
Okay, I am pasting that in the chat. I hope people watching on YouTube will see it as well. Otherwise, we'll post all of these links afterwards. Okay, is there anything else you guys would like to talk about, or shall we move on to some more developer-oriented topics? All right.
Let's move on.
Let's move on. Okay, so for this session, we kind of decided that we're going to be talking about architecture as one of the topics. So, what kind of first let's just say what each one of us thinks when we hear the word architecture on Android. So, you want to start with Abhinandan?
Hello, yeah. On architecture on Android, I'm basically new into Android. I started Android dev in December itself. And so prior to Android, I was DevOps engineer. So I'm currently learning this all patterns. Here at our work, we follow MVP and we adhere to TDD using MVP. And recently, we started MVVM and using the data binding provided by Google. And this Dagger and all Dagger 2 we have started using. Yeah, that's all what I know till now about architectures in Android.
Cool. MVP seems quite popular, probably the most popular kind of UI pattern. Who's using it, or who's not using it?
Why not?
Well, I just started working on an app as a private project, and it's just like basically 2 screens, and it's so small I can live with having logic in my activity. On the other hand, on a larger project, it helps a lot, I think, but it's also maybe not easy to get right, or maybe there's not the right way to do it, because we know there are like 50 or even more different libraries trying to help you implementing it. So it's always a matter of picking the right thing for your project, not just picking the right thing.
Yeah, I agree completely. I necessarily don't really start with MVP in the first place, because if you have a couple of screens, then you don't need it, and I think you don't need Dagger. You don't need all the flashy stuff. If you position your stuff right, if you decouple certain things, you can get away without it for some time before actually you start needing it, or not, because you move on to something else. Yeah, so has anyone used MVVM, like the data binding? Paco?
Kind of. So I'm not using the data binding libraries from from Google, but the architecture that I'm trying to push in the application, because we have a mixture depending on which module you get in. It looks more like the web version of Flux, where you have a store and then you're binding those stores to the view, and then you're just updating the stores. The stores meaning, sorry, some kind of shared state. So the state is very explicit, it's all in one place, and whenever there's an update to either one of the values, the UI updates with you. So everything is supposed to be like passive, and the information just flows one way, which is what MVP tries to do, with the only difference that MVP is supposed to be talking between the view and the presenter directly, rather than having the whole storage in the middle. That is where the information is being binded. So it kind of works, but it's a lot of work to lay out, and it's a lot of work to maintain, because it requires certain discipline or certain approach to how you abstract especially the Android parts, because you know as well as I do that the framework is not stateless, it's not immutable, it's not supposed to be any of those things. They have an expectations, and you have to meet them. And if you're trying to do MVVM, you have to meet them halfway, and that's the part where the thing gets a little bit muddy. So it kind of works because you abstract the small parts of your whole feature set, and whenever there's a bug, you know specifically where that problem is, because the stores only changes so many things, and you're only listening to so many signals. And whenever there's a bug, you know immediately where happened and how to fix it. So from that part, it's okay. But at the same time, again, it requires all this discipline and all this wrapping around it. And I understand why Google is not a big proponent for it. If you see some of the conferences that they give around architecture, they just say like, oh, what is MVP? What are these words? I don't understand. I'm confused. Just go for the simpler thing that works for your application. And for some people, that means complex things. For some people, that means something really simple. So there's a discussion to have in there.
Do you have like any open source samples of that VM?
Yeah, so I was exploring that. I had one Soundkick interview repository that is on my GitHub profile, but that's like from almost a year ago. So from there we have evolved the architecture a little bit, and I had the chance to try it out with a couple of codecs, and they gave me some tips on how to make it more pleasant to work with, and how to deal away with that boilerplate. So, but I guess the general idea of how to structure your code is about it. So it's called Soundkick Interview. Is github.com/pacoito with a K. Soundkick Interview.
Okay, copying it in.
Cool.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, any more war stories with battling spaghetti code and all of that?
Always got it out of that. But yeah, nothing lately. Been working on tons of new features, and it's going great.
So basically, just introducing technical debt instead of.
Yeah, instead of fixing the old one.
But that's also really cool, isn't it? It's like everyone wants to work on new features. It's just nice to have something flashy come out.
Yeah, there once in a while, like, oh god, I can do that way. I gotta go back and refactor that, and then it's like, oh yeah, no time for that.
Interesting. Yeah. So what was that? Going back to what you said, Paco, about how Google advocates mainly use whatever is necessary, the minimum. So I just remembered Rito Meyer's video from a couple of months ago, must be, when he was kind of starting working on something, and he was basically just throwing all the code in a single activity. And have you guys watched that?
Yeah. What's it supposed to be a series?
I think it was supposed to be a series, but I don't remember seeing the episodes too.
I think That's the problem. That's when you get when you go to the Google examples and you see all the code, and it's like you forgot to do step 2. It's like step 1 is getting the thing to work. Step 2 is just like just scaling it down to the minimal thing that you can do that makes sense with your architecture. And the stuff that they show is like, of course, you shouldn't do that in an application, but this is an example, and it just works as an example. It's like, yeah, but you forgot to do part 2, which is showing people how it looks when it's not an example, when it's something that goes into production. And I think that's something that Google is trying to work on. They are, as far as I know, they are trying to write. They are trying to hire some technical writers. They are trying to improve the quality of the body of examples that they are providing today.
It will be interesting to see how it evolves now, considering Stack Overflow is introducing documentation, and Android is already starting to have a lot of documentation, both for Android, both for RxJava, Java alone. There's like a ton of docs already. And most of those are working examples, and they'll be kept up to date, and I hope so.
Well, the problem with existing Android documentation is, yeah, I mean, you have in the same repository, you have docs from 2016 till back to 2009 and 8, and it's all a bit convoluted, and sometimes pages would link to other pages that are like 5 years older, and the API has changed. That's probably my biggest irk with it. It's like not organized well. And for a company that tries to organize the world's information, that's quite an odd thing to have. Anyway.
Especially it's like different people, even people that don't work on Android, have been writing documentation for Android. Like I know one sample which was written by one of the guys that work on Golang. And that's his main job, and he also wrote documentation for some parts of Android. And he's not even on the Android team. It's like, yeah.
Maybe the person who's got the most pain with something will actually write the documentation just because they went through that. Or not. Maybe just
Probably not.
The person who stumbles upon it.
I mean, on Android Studio today, if you open some examples or open a template for some activities, you get an activity generated with deprecated code, and then the documentation points to some other deprecated thing. I just recently did it, and that's really annoying, and then you have to start Googling around for it and maybe find a good article. But then again, all you're probably going to find is the Android docs written by Google, and there you'll find context passed into other tasks. So, yeah, you have to really look for good solutions to problems, but if you don't know there are better solutions because the Android docs are ranked #1, yeah, then what you're going to do?
I agree 100%. I've learned that, yeah, the best way to create a new activity or a service is basically add a new class and add it in the manifest manually, because everything else is just going to cause you pain and suffering, and not even in the long run, in the short run.
You just copy the activity from your previous project, and that's it. That's what I do. Like every new activity, just copy paste or delete everything. Yeah, this should be.
Fair.
Yeah, like trying to create the new fragment using the fragment wizard thing, and oh look, constraint layout is out. Let's add it to a build Gradle. Oh, let's reformat everything so now everything is broken. Oh, here's like 5 new files you didn't even ask for. You just asked for a fragment. Yeah, it sucks totally.
So here's my question, and this is something that always puzzles me. What do you think about Google's approach to APIs? Because our biggest problem is it stems from the documentation, but that documentation is tied to an API, and the API is never obvious to use. They always use this configuration, mutation, builder, little bit of everything, so you never get on those documents how to do things. It just says what it does. So you will get a description for each one of the methods, what they do, but they never say how to add them together in a meaningful way. And that's where they have the second layer of documentation, which is newer, which is the developer portal. And even at that, the examples that they have are either incomplete or they are just very basic. So as soon as you're trying to deviate a little bit from the standard thing, you're out in the open or you're back in the stack.
Yeah, Google's APIs.
Yeah.
There is never a pleasant story associated with that. I tend to wrap everything I get from Google anyway. I mean, even more than I'd wrap other things. So, but yeah, it's just like some life cycle mess you have to live with, and it's never pleasant.
And when they join the discussion, and I've seen them do this a couple of times, they open a new blog post and they say, hey, we have cases, we have these libraries that they are doing things, but they are not Android specific because they are not lifecycle aware, which means you have to work to make it work on a lifecycle. But our solution is lifecycle aware, which means it's better right off the bat. And when you actually try the thing and you get something like loaders, oh, loaders are lifecycle aware, why would you do this connection of an Rx Java? Loaders are doing that for you, and then you see the actual implementation of loaders, and they have been broken for a while, and sometimes they don't do what you're expecting to. You don't have any kind of, that they have expectations of what your application should do. They never match your requirements, and it's so hard. It's so hard. It gets so hard sometimes to try to find the Google solution that they thought it would be appropriate for you.
Yeah, I just some people on Slack have just suggested we mentioned Code Labs because yeah, even MVP and anything from Google is just the docs are so bad and the APIs are so bad and it's horrible. Just Code Labs seem to be like the hot new way to get anything done, so I'm pasting that in as well. And if you search for Android specific things, you can find just find the MVP.
You can find Agora, the Google's copy of Eric's Java.
Oh yeah, Paco, do you have an opinion on that?
I do not have an opinion. I do have an opinion, but that's fine. They say it works for them, and that's good. That's good.
Yeah. I haven't actually used it, to be honest, so I can't say much about it. But I just don't see why they would start writing their own thing without knowing RxJava works for everyone. I mean, more or less.
Yep. And Agora is like how much? Like 100 times slower or something, or like 1,000 times slower for some basic stuff. It doesn't handle back pressure well. It just seems terrible.
It was one way of applying like the principles of reactive programming, except they forgot the part of reactive functional programming. So it's not functional. It's imperative and it's inheritance based somehow. So you ended up with this middle ground, which, as they say, it does reactive programming. If you implement it and if you follow the rules, the specifications, it does what they're expecting it to. It's just it's not up to the quality standards you would expect if you were to use it in a specific library. Where I see other people where they use Volley, and I've been using Volley in several applications, and it's been working well for us. But I don't see Agora in this case working well inside our own libraries, despite of the awkward APIs and everything. I don't know. It felt like an attempt to reproduce something without the whole complete set, or trying to reduce the amount of what is the word, like mental overhead that you get into buying into the technology. So they use pieces that they already knew about, and they were trying to sell those, and probably just for that it has some value. But at the same time, it's not a complete like implementation of the whole what we would expect from it. So.
Awesome.
That reminds me of this library, which was like a year and a half ago on Creations DroidCon. They were talking about it, and it would be better than RxJava, but I never heard if it was finished or anything about it anywhere. It's made by Futurize. They have those like awesome Android or whatever docs, but I never really heard about it outside of that doc. I don't know if anyone has seen it yet.
I haven't seen it, but top tips for RX Java on it? No, can't be that.
Reactive Cascade.
Yeah, let's. If we can't find the link right now, let's.
I pasted it in the.
Oh, you have it.
chat.
All right, I was looking for it. Reactive Cascade. Cool stuff. Interesting. Gotta check that out. Okay. Anything else on this topic, or shall we move to our final topic for the day, which is CI? More DevOps stuff. It's all right. Okay.
My favorite.
Yeah. Yeah. So, who's using CI?
Everyone is using CI. No one can live without CI.
There's no reason not to.
Yeah. How easy it is to set up, like literally anyone can and should.
Depends what. Depends what. Like.
Oh well, yeah.
So.
Try and
What's your weapon of choice when it comes to CIs?
currently it's body build. Previously it was Circle and Travis and Jenkins, but now it's body build. It's like CI, they can add an SDK to shape to send debug. They have continuous delivery integrated. They're like really, really awesome. And just one click to set up, and I don't have to fight Jenkins anymore or Gradle scripts or anything.
Body build. Okay, copying it in. Okay. Jason mentioned they don't use CI, unfortunately, mostly because of the infrastructure it would require and the fact that we wouldn't get much benefit out of it right now, since our test suite is shit. I have this opinion that it really depends on the quality of your tests, but it's in some ways you can also benefit from just reproducible builds if you have everything scripted. But yeah, we use Travis at M&S in my team. Other teams use Circle and Jenkins for some smaller things that we want to get away with. So kind of use a lot of them anymore.
I don't know if I'm allowed to say because NDA and all that stuff. I always forget to check with governance. But we are using a third solution from a big provider, and it's pretty much the same idea. Like all the builds, both Android, iOS, and web, are automated. So every time you push a branch to a repository, if the branch has a specific name that corresponds to some values or parameters inside the company, then the build will get automatically kicked. It will run the test and it will deploy to a hockey app for the testers. So basically, I don't have to care about anything like talking to them or anything. Oh, there's going to be a new build. There's going to be on this branch. You just go and get hockey app, and you're going to be able to see it within 30 seconds of me pushing the branch into a repository. So that's really nice, actually.
Yeah. That's mostly the same reason why we used it here. Like our test suite is shit also, but hey, gotta deliver new features. But yeah, continuous delivery, reproducible builds, choosing like, I don't know, I can deliver to our beta testers on Google Play one specific branch. As soon as it's pushed, I can deliver a push to our testers inside the company and to other developers to try it out and see if they want something else or stuff like that. And depending on which branch you push or build or set nightly, it's like I don't have to mess around with writing emails and drag and dropping case and stuff like that.
Somebody's asking, what do you mean by reproducible builds, right?
Right. So the idea is that when you commit something, that point in time, you have everything scripted sufficiently so that it gets built. So because if you're thinking it, yeah, but I mean I have everything in. If I have everything in the CI, just in the repo, everything will be Gradle will build everything. But the CI not only gives you that, it also gives you the benefit of not building something on your personal development machine, which can get polluted, and then it just won't build as well. So let's say you have the wrong version of Java installed, and you could potentially have problems with that. I hope that answers or clarifies my previous statement.
So the same builds that you're building in that CI are the same ones that are going to the Play Store. So there's no difference between the builds that you're providing to the testers and the builds that are going to the store. They're going to be one-to-one matching, and that happens over time. So you always can go back and say, hey, this specific APK is the one that we sent months ago, and that's living in a centralized place. Could be a repository too. You can make a case for that, but it's automated in this case, so it makes it way simpler.
Also, you get a build archive. So, like for example, if something is crashing and a build someone has, and advanced already, it's like I don't know in development, and I could just download the debug APK of the same version, same build, and try it out and see where it crashes. No checking out, no syncing Gradle again to change the build variant, no building, just one-click install and that's it.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, so we have another Hangouter, Nish. Hello.
Hey everyone. My name is Nish, and I'm a developer for hire. So.
Mercenary.
Yeah, more or less, I'm like a mercenary. I just wanted to weigh in on the CI thing. Let's just be honest. I mean, everybody's tests are horrible. We just don't do enough tests. Yeah, and I can see some people gasping. You know it's true. Come on, be honest. I think the main benefit of CI is basically just to know that what we push actually builds and doesn't actually crash, and we expect it to work everywhere. So we end up doing a lot of really crazy things, like especially with things like virtualization. You end up using things like Vagrant and trying to set up some kind of test environment to make sure that it actually builds, the way it's supposed to. So I don't think tests are really the focus. It should be mostly, does it build? Can I deploy it instantly? And other things like that in general.
Sorry, I was just looking at other things that we have to.
People try to build their own CI, like just for fun. Okay, there's somebody that's crazy. Okay, nothing.
Well, with Docker, it actually isn't as crazy as one would think.
Get your own Vagrant or something so people can deploy the same on local environment and on the servers.
Well, I guess it's always a question of how far do you want to go. You can do a very simple CI-like thing by just having a Git hook to call your Gradle script. But you can also set up like a Docker container with the complete dev environment to set up new devs pretty quickly. I mean, that's not really CI, but it's a thing to do too. Personally, we at work we use Jenkins, but we don't run any tests because they are failing anyway. We're going to work on that really soon. What we use it for is automatic distribution to a company internal website, so the test team can just download every nightly build and test it and report bugs on them.
Yeah, so that was my point, which would be most at this stage. I think how most people end up doing it is we're not using continuous integration or CI for testing. It's mostly for everything else. So personally, I think that's like the integration part in continuous integration. It's not really a testing. Not because it can't do it, but mostly because all our tests are just not great.
I have a question. Does anybody have any kind of linter or PMD kind of extra on top of their build system, at least for like release builds or anything?
Yeah, we have PMD and find bugs, but turned them off because the code base was terrible when I started. So waiting to refactor everything more properly. So I just run find bugs without reports in CI. I just run it locally.
Yeah, check style is as far as I go.
We just use lint.
Yeah, lint here too, but we disabled it because a few thousand warnings was just annoying.
No, we're actually quite on top of our warnings. I have a colleague who's really vigilant towards them, so he would usually go and spend a couple of hours, reduce the warnings to like manageable levels. So get it down from like 200 to 20, which is really cool. Yeah.
When we met in London at the Google thingy, I had like 14K Android lint warnings. Now it's about 4K and something. It's the app that I didn't touch yet.
Oh, come on. It was more fun the first way. 14,000 isn't that bad.
Yeah. You just can't touch anything because something might break.
But they're just warnings, right? They're not really telling you anything.
Come on. That's like don't drive and play Pokemon. It's just a warning.
I was in one of the talks by Noboda, and Noboda is better than everybody else. And they have zero. I kid you not. They told me they have zero lint PMD find bug elements, and because whenever they find one, they have to squash it, and whenever they deploy it, they have to come with zero PMD warnings. Of course, they modify the rules to be a little bit more lenient, to add some stuff that, of course, it wouldn't make sense, or they are just plain warnings. But on the serious stuff, they told us that their quality standards require not to have anything, and that's something that surprises me, and I think surprised a couple more people in that talk. And we challenged it, and we came back. It's like, it's impossible. What you're doing is surreal. They're just like, no, we're just that good. And like, you definitely are.
Okay, I've got a question for you guys, though. Can you do without it, or do you think that you can do without CI in your deployment stack?
No, without deployment, no. I mean, I can, but I don't want to email 1,000 people with APKs.
On my side project, I could, but which I'm actually without any CI, CD, anything. Basically, just sending people APKs. On the at work, no chance. In
we actually have a good pipeline with QA and everything. So in the end, they are the ones that are merging the branches and everything. So they have to be the ones actually managing CI. So I could do without it. It wouldn't affect me, but at the same time, it affects the whole workflow. So it's really important for us, really, really important as a company to have that deployment system.
Well, we could do without, because those whole nightly builds and everything is just a convenience thing, and in that I would also like to answer Jason's question there. I'm working in an enterprise environment, so we have a team for QA, we have a team for configuration management, who I send a mail to every Friday after I tag the release and tell them to build it and distribute it. So they are my CI basically. And we have a quite large test team. Well, because the app is really complex and you can't do everything with automated tests. Yeah. So I don't need CI, but it would be really convenient to have it to not ship bugs constantly, because they do happen. We all know that.
There's a question by Jason, like, how many of us have access to dedicated testers? We have exactly 1,000 closed beta testers, and not a QA person, but beta testers, like people using our app in real life, because we rely on buying tickets really for cinemas, so people need to buy tickets. So we need a lot of real life testing, because like we include hundreds of different parts of different cinemas, so it's like really breakable, and we need real life testers.
We have 2 people who are dedicated as QA, and they're the ones who get our first builds, and they would do the majority of the testing. But the team would also dog food. So every release candidate, you'd get like a closed beta. We're just utilizing the Play Store's beta releasing for that, and that's where you do the last kind of final smoke test.
In our case, we have a full huge large team of QAs, and pretty much because we have multidisciplinary teams. I'm the only developer on my team. No, sorry, we have another one. We are a special team. We are the only team with 200 developers, and we have 200 developers, 1 web developer, 1 front end, and 1 and 2 iOS, and then we have 3 QAs for everybody. And I know other teams where the ratio developer QA is even better. So we're a really good company in that regard. We have a lot of people from QA that have really improved our development process. We can deploy way faster, and we get way fewer bugs, because you're not worried about doing all the dog food every single time. You just get enough that you understand that it's working, and if you try to find edge cases, you're spending your time instead of development on doing QA, so you can just move it back into QA, which is what they do, and they are just perfectly good at it. Really good. I'm really happy with that agreement, actually. So I see a lot of value in having a good QA team in your company.
So are your QA teams of each of you, are they more manual testing, or do they write kind of test scripts that are executed automatically, like Calabash, Appium, or how does it look?
Both. So depending on each one of them, of course, there are people come and go, and they tend to be really young, maybe coming from university, or a couple of them have been there for several years. So depending on their degree of knowledge, they can start with automated testing, and I think it's a requirement as you want to go up in the ranks of the QAs. But at the same time, they also do manual testing. So when you're providing them with a build, they run your own tests, they run their own integration test or instrumentation, if you want to call it that. And then they do the manual, and then when everything is just ready, because the feature gets merged. So it's feature branches, and each one of the feature branches requires passing QA. They are the ones that go like thumbs up or thumbs down. So it's really good in that sense. Really good team.
All right. So how do you guys what advice would you have for small teams that are supposed to cope in this kind of environment? Because my sense here is that all of you, everybody else on the panel, has this massive test team full of interns and people basically writing scripts and doing actual tests on the on the device. So what advice would you have for a smaller team?
Dog food.
Definitely.
Just deliver it to everyone using email or Slack or whatever is your choice, or Poke app or anything. And do like what we do for dog food for internal company testing. Put a small dog paw icon on your regular icon. It's the equivalent. But yeah, just let everyone in the company test it and submit bugs and open issues and stuff like that.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So, sorry. Yeah, the different way to get some more testers, which we also use, is crowd testing. I don't know if anyone of you have used it before. You basically have a company that has a certain amount of people. Those are usually just people like you and me who register with them, and you can set up a test set, and the people will run your app and try to find bugs, and they do get paid per bug found. So there is a bit of a motivation there, because you can have 1,000 people on your Google Play beta, and no one's actually putting up bug or issue reports. But those people, they do get paid for it, so there's a motivation. And there are certain quality standards they have to follow, like including screenshots or even screencasts, so you can easily reproduce the issues. We had some good experience with it, but we have to say that most of the stuff comes in the first like 12 hours, and then that's pretty much it.
Yeah, is this app loss? Because I've heard of app loss before. The service you mentioned, Max.
Sorry?
Which service is that? Like, what's the name?
Let me find it.
For this one.
I think we are using test.io.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I mean, my 2 cents. Essentially, I don't consider my team to be large. I think my team is fairly small, and our QA people are not just our QA people. So we have 2 people working on Android, iOS, and mobile web. So they're essentially across 3 platforms, 2 people, and pretty much all of the test scripts that are automated are written by us, the devs. So it's definitely possible to write as much as possible, as much as sensible, not just as possible, yourself, and see how it works for you. I would really recommend that, and it'll make the team much more agile as well.
I'm gonna go ahead and go with a technical one. There is something called property-based testing, where if your application is kind of this is more geared towards unit testing. Whereas if your application is chunked architecturally in a way where you can have each one of the chunks is single input, single output, it generates thousands of millions of different valid outputs for your application, and it does it for you. I think the one that is used on Android is called Spock. And if you're able to wire that into your build system, that saves you a little bit of time, at least on unit testing. Maybe not on the big picture kind of solution that the application is doing what you're expecting it to, but at least on the small scale, like I would find it every single bug. If you take that decision, that would also help.
Well, shout out to Groovy. I'm definitely pro Spock.
Yeah, I was trying to get something from like all the other ones that I've seen are based on either Java 8 or Clojure. So I was thinking, like, can I port one? Can I bring one? Can I do something with it? But it's hard. Like, it's hard. Life is hard. I have all the stuff to do.
On the Kotlin side of things, it's called Spek. It's pretty similar to Spock. Not as great at the moment, in my opinion, but it does show a lot of promise.
I'm getting that. I'm definitely getting that.
No. I mean, use Groovy. It's amazing. Yeah.
I'm just trying to find the links. So Spek is actually written by JetBrains, I see.
Mm-hmm.
Spek.
And two of you have beaten me.
We're just trying to help.
It's good. It's good. That kind of interaction is definitely more than welcome. Cool. Any closing remarks? Because we're kind of running out of time.
All right, I guess I can give that a go. I think the moral of the story is test as much as you can, but you know, we get it. It's hard. Just do the best that you can. I think.
I would add something to that. I agree 100%, Nish. I would add, basically, it's only hard if you're not doing it right. That's how I think about testing.
All right, so that means that given that there are hundreds of thousands of developers out there at the moment, some watching us right now, none of us are doing it right.
No, you misunderstood me, probably. I got myself in there, right? If testing is really, really, really fiendishly hard, then you're probably not doing something right. Some architectural stuff may not be laid out the best as it could be, and maybe you're just testing the wrong things. The way I see it, if you're testing the most important things, like your APIs, that kind of stuff, it's usually fairly easy, or easier than testing the stuff that
There's something that you can do, and I think this is a solution that Google showed out. Instead of trying to solve the problem via architecture and doing unit testing, what you do is you do feature testing with Espresso, and you have the Espresso recorder. So basically, you just automate your testing, and it's so high level that it doesn't really matter your implementation. It just matters that the application does what it's supposed to. So it's the one that provides the most business value, but not the most technical, like developer kind of value. So you're still gonna find bugs. You're still gonna have problems with your design and developing, but at least your application is not crashing retroactively because you have this set of Espresso tests that assure that the features are still working. So it isn't great, but at least it's a simple solution that you can provide anytime.
I got a question regarding testing, actually. Like, I know a lot of folks test just the normal common use cases. Sound like me test both edge cases and common use cases. But like, does anyone here test like only edge cases and expect if those tests pass, the common use cases should work as opposed to?
I think that's a terrible assumption to make.
Why? Why though?
Well, it's mostly because it is exactly what it sounds like. It's an edge case, right? It's very, very unlikely to happen. Common use cases, though, on the other hand, is something that you expect to happen. You expect the user to do every day. So if you deploy your app to, say, 100,000 people, maybe 10 of those are going to crash because of some edge case problem. But if you're not testing the common use cases, then what happens to the other 990,000 or 99,000 people?
Yeah, but if edge case tests pass, then the common ones should by some kind of logic.
The way I see it is common ones are easier testable, tend to be really easily testable, the happy path, I mean, by just doing like regular old smoke testing with your device, whereas like edge cases, going there and back and repeating the process like 37,000 times and then turning the phone upside down and going back and opening Facebook and I don't know what else. That would be really hard to test, though.
How do you even figure out edge cases?
You learn them. You learn them and you fix them and you add tests for them.
All right. Maybe I'm just being ridiculous here, but what an edge case sounds like to me is basically my user steps out of his house and he's about to get into his car, and then a solar flare happens, which flips a bit on the phone that causes my app to crash out of nowhere.
I have one edge case that you would like. You have one click on the screen that makes the screen advance to the next fragment. And you say, okay, you click, next fragment. That's fine. Because the clicks are deployed asynchronously, the click can be deployed after the current fragment has been destroyed by a rotation or a bug. and you're still pushing the new fragment, so the application crashes. That's an edge case for me, and that's a really common one. If you're not unwiring your on clicks can be dispatched after on destroy. And if you're pushing a new fragment, the application is going to crash, or unless you commit allowing lossless state or some kind of thing. And that's a really edge case because you have to do it within frames, like 100th of a second, even less than that, and it still happens. We still have, well, tens of cases, not thousands, but tens.
So I think that gets back to my point a little bit, because you can't exactly figure out edge cases just like that. I mean, there are some that you will definitely come across, but like the vast majority of them are just going to be things that just happen out of nowhere. You know, it's basically like using a Samsung phone or something like that. Just lots of things happening.
I accidentally bought a Samsung phone, and then nothing works.
Yeah, Samsung. I'm not saying anything bad about your product, so don't. If you were thinking about hiring me, please do.
Shameless plug here.
Yeah, shameless plug.
You should hire him. He's very smart. And he makes the most epic bot ever for Slack.
Yeah, with new features coming out soon.
Yeah. Only on AndroidChat. Yeah.
AndroidChat policy.
/policy as well, definitely. Any more? Any closing remarks? We're
just one last thing. Like, how many of you use Dexguard, the enterprise version of Proguard, for code obfuscation, or any other similar tools?
We don't use anything at the moment, even Proguard.
Yeah, I basically just resigned myself to thinking that those just don't work well enough to hide the things that you actually want to hide. So
I don't think you should be hiding anything on the front end side anyway, especially stuff that's installed on other people's devices. It's just pointless.
Yeah, the security is hard because you can always have hard-coded like URLs or not password but kind of keys, and those ones are not hidden for you anyway, so you're not gaining much. But especially Dexguard, I think, is the paid one, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think anybody's paying for it. Like Proguard already is a big investment, and Dexguard, the gains in performance or whatever, probably not.
well, one could argue that there are needs, or there are valid use cases for obfuscator tools, but depending on what it is that you actually want hidden, it's really hard to justify it in a lot of cases. Like, I just want to hide my API key. Like, it just doesn't do that for me, so it actually doesn't do what I want it to do.
That's kind of my thinking as well. Cool. All right. I think that's all we have time for. Unfortunately, it was great chatting with you, and I hope we do this soon. Thank you, everyone who's attended, and yeah, I hope to do more of these soon. If you have any comments, suggestions, either post them on the G+ page or join our Slack, AndroidChat.co, and say hi and suggest cool stuff to us. All right? So thank you again, anyone who's attended, who's viewed. So see you soon.
All right, thanks for having us.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.